Mr. Happy Living here, and I'm happy to be broadcasting from WITV7 in the beautiful Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, USA. Hey friends, will you join me for just a minute and imagine how amazing you'd feel living the unique and distinct life you were put on this planet to live, doing work you love, with people you love, in places you love, and all the while creating something of real value to others. That's what I call a life of significance. And I can tell you it makes a very happy life. And so can my friend Glen Van Peski. And he's here to share his unique and distinct journey to his life of significance. But before we bring him on, I'd like to share a poem we created to thank him for being our guest star today. It's called Take Less, Do More, The Way of Legend. And it goes like this. He lightens the load, both pack and soul, an engineer turned trailborne pro. From gear to wisdom, light and free, he shares his gifts so others see. A leader, a tinkerer, heart open wide, with boundless generosity as his guide. Through mountains high and lessons deep, he sows so all of us may reap. So tune in now, let your inspiration grow. On our 184th Something Significant show, the man they call legend will lead the way, take less, do more, and seize the day. Hey, Glenn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's an honor. I've read so many of those little poems you create, and I always scratch my head like, how does he come up with those amazing poems? And now I have one about me. It's awesome.
You've got one about you. So get us started by telling us what you're doing these days to make your mark of significance on the world.
Well, a couple different ways. One is I teach people how to get out into the wilderness with less weight on their back. So I teach them how to pack lighter, basically. And I do this. Sometimes it's a one-to-one basis. Someone comes to the house and we go through their pack. And sometimes I'm talking to hundreds of people. Done this all over the world. And then, of course, the book kind of continues that section of what I do.
Tell the people the name of the book.
Name of the book is Take Less, Do More, Surprising Life Lessons in Generosity, Gratitude, and Curiosity from an Ultralight Backpacker.
And are there any capital letters in the title?
There are not, because capital letters take more ink, so are heavier and are really unnecessary. Everyone knows what it means as is.
So you can see, folks, Glenn takes this take less stuff very, very seriously. Glenn, before you tell, I want to ask about a few other things, but just give to let the audience know, I was going to say how psycho you are, but let's say how creative you are in getting less. There's two stories that I read that I'd like you to share. One is about how you can make a toothbrush lighter, and the other is about how your friend tested how well string cheese survives heat.
Sure. So, yeah, on the toothbrush, I mean, when I rode my bicycle across the country in 1976, I just took a regular toothbrush and cut the handle off or cut it in half. But there's actually a better way to do that. They make toothbrushes for prisons, a prison supply company that only weighs 7 grams. And they're just like an open little piece of plastic with some plastic bristles, because probably if you're in prison, your dental hygiene is not the primary worry for you at that point. But yeah, so that can get your toothbrush weight down to 7 grams. And as far as the string cheese, of course, cheese is a good source of protein, good snack on the trail. But obviously you don't have refrigeration on the trail. So my buddy Reed Miller wanted to know like how long string cheese would last. So he put some in his trunk of his car and then would take one out. And this was summer in San Diego. He would take one out every week and eat it and see if it was still okay. So.
And I noticed in the book you said you're not offering medical advice, so you should, or nutritional advice, but this is just a backpack experiment.
Exactly. Yes. Good note there. Yes, definitely.
Very good. And then, so I noticed there's quite a few other things on your Facebook or LinkedIn page: Director of Travel Edge, Investor of Food for the Soul, Investor Bluffworks, Dishwasher at the Sparrow Bakery, and of course your work at the Gossamer Gear Company. So kind of give our audience just a little flavor for all the things you're doing and how your role in those various enterprises.
Well, actually, I mean, I made my living, had a full career as a civil engineer in land development, worked for other people, had my own company, worked for the cities that we lived in. but yeah, along the way, I accidentally started a gear company, Gossamer Gear. So I'm still actively involved in that, testing gear and creating gear. Um, I'm involved. The book is actually a fair amount of involvement right now. We're preparing some study guides,
Mm.
obviously on podcasts, and doing speaking tours. I'm going to Europe to speak in the spring. Just got back from Japan last year. Um, yeah, and then I invest in companies that um, kind of come across my path, basically that I think
Hmm.
have a great product and something that I use and believe in. Um, I haven't. I'm not a great investor. Food for the Soul is now out of business along with my investment, but uh, they had a great product and they still have a great product. So.
Yeah, sometimes it does take more than a great product, and it's hard to judge exactly what leads to that level of success in athletics or in business, or the margin is funnily interestingly small. Okay, Glenn. Well, let's do a little mathematics so our friends all around the world can get to know you through our happy formula. It's a very simple but very powerful formula. It goes like this: power plus purpose equals happy. So let's start with power. What are your personal practices for building up all the power that you need to get things done, whether it's physically, mentally, financially, spiritually, emotionally? In other words, Glenn, what do you do on a regular basis to create the power you need to take excellent care of yourself and your loved ones and still have plenty left over so you can be a giver to others?
Well, first of all, I love that it's a formula. Well, one, because I'm an engineer, but I think so many people like they're going after happiness, and you can't seek happiness. And I mean, you're the expert, but in my experience, it's a result of other things and living a life of purpose and having that power and purpose. So in terms of power, I have a morning routine if we're home, which for 126 days last year we weren't. So,
Mm,
but for sure when we're home, I spend the first part of my day on my face before God.
mm,
Being grateful, bringing people to mind that need something, and just asking that God would direct my steps that day. Bring
mm-hmm.
people across my path that I'm supposed to impact, and then help me to recognize that.
Yeah,
That no, this person, I've got something for them, or they have something for me, so I can act on that. Um, and then a big part of power is creating margin of time, energy, and money.
mm,
So, part of that is spending less than you make. We
mm-hmm.
give away a significant portion of our income just because we live pretty simple lives. Um, and then time and energy, not saying, yes, this is a problem for me, not saying yes to so many things that I'm too busy, so I don't notice that person that seems to be having a hard day that
Right.
God wanted me to talk to and enter their life. So, um, yeah, you got to have the margin. And then a piece of that is for having margin, margin of financial margin is being intentional and setting aside a separate fund so that, when a need comes across our path, we have the funds to engage in that. If we just have to
Yeah.
answer the question, does this have our name on it or not?
Yeah, and I loved when I was reading about that because you can create margin with a lot of money or a little money, and it doesn't really matter the amount. What matters is creating the margin, because when you have margin, that's by definition you can take care of yourself and your loved one, and you have more to give to others, and that gives you comfort. And if you're underwater, that brings you nothing but stress. And yeah, you could have tons of money and tons of margin and not give any of it. That also creates unhappiness. So I think it's beautiful the way you've described it in your book. One more
Yeah,
thing
that's
on, oh, go ahead.
well, that's one of the things that keeps coming up. It's interesting to me which parts of the book resonate with people because everyone takes
Hmm.
something different. But being more intentional about generosity and creating just incrementally a separate fund, so you can, because the benefits of being generous accrue not just to the receiver, it's to the person giving. So, I mean, that more than
100%.
anyone, huge source of happiness. So building that fund so you can participate in that is
Yeah.
it's a game changer.
Yeah, it's a blast. And I was going to ask you, and I'm glad we went around here a little bit. For our audience that's listening, your book is a backpacking book, but it's a book about life lessons. So give your spiel for, like, I'm not a backpacker, but I'm really, really enjoying the book. Although I live in a van. So I'm taking a lot of these less is more concepts and applying. That's what I'm doing here in my van. And oh, that's a pretty good idea. I can try that here in my van. But you don't need to be a backpacker or an RVer to get real important lessons from your book. So just give us a minute or so on how this evolved in your life into life lessons.
Sure. So for 50 years roughly, I've been working on reducing my pack weight. So I'm going out with all my gear weighs under 5 pounds now on a typical trip. So, you add food and water to that. That's pretty light. But as I worked through the years to reduce my pack weight, I realized that a lot of the lessons from that process and also lessons from being out in wilderness with a lighter pack, I realized had greater applicability to life in general. And so I wrote the book to kind of bring forth those lessons, with wilderness stories, but also application stories on how I apply them in the rest of my life. So there's one chapter that's kind of backpacking centric, one lesson for the hardcore backpackers. But the rest of the book is applying those lessons to life in general.
Yeah, it's very good. Okay, so while we're still on power, let's talk about one of my favorite power generating concepts. It's called a Kaizen state of mind. And Glenn, it's this beautiful Japanese idea that small incremental improvements add up over time to yield great big results. And I love it because it's based on mindset, not circumstance. So Kaizening life is knowing there's always something I can do better tomorrow than today. And it creates this optimistic, gentle, but powerful and continuous uplifting of my life day after day after day. So Glenn, how does Kaizening your life help you increase your power to continuously become more so you can continuously give more?
Well, I'm so glad. I wish I worked with someone at the city and I told him about Kaizen, and I wish I had still had contact info for him, because we would go back and forth on this. And I was a big fan, as you know, I sent you a copy of the board that was in my office.
Yeah.
And my mantra was continuous incremental improvement. Because there's a lot of focus in government right now about, big programs. We're going to fix this. We're going to destroy this. We're going to, some huge new thing. And I was always a fan of much smaller, continue. What can we do like 5% better today than we did yesterday? Is there a step we can cut out, or is there some way we can serve our customer better? And I'm lucky, as an engineer, we just kind of naturally think this way. We're always optimizing, like, how could I be more efficient about this? How could I do this better? How can I, so that's just the way I live. It drives my wife crazy sometimes. And I've learned, like, not to Kaizen the wife. She does not appreciate that.
That's it. I'm going to take a note of that.
Yeah, no, she's not interested in my observations on how she could make her life more efficient, for sure. I've learned that in 43 years.
Very good.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of continuous incremental, and part of that is you can go easy on yourself. Like, if you, it's yes, you can always do better, but there's always tomorrow to do better. So you don't beat yourself up, what went wrong today, or what could I have done better today? It's like, no, I get tomorrow, until we don't, to, make it a little better.
Yeah. And I've added something to Kaizen for my own life. Like your opinion on this, it's Kaizen and hold. So once you make an improvement, do not give it back. Hold on for dear life. If you've lost 5 pounds, don't give it back. You have it now, keep it. And if you hang on to your improvements and then keep adding on to them, then it really takes hold.
Yeah, no, that's huge. You can say you're going to read for 20 minutes a day or something. Well, that's great. But if you stop doing it, well, okay, that, and you may take on things and let go of things to suit your needs. You may have accomplished what the goal was with that Kaizen. Correct. But yeah, I agree in general. Yeah, holding on to them, as you inch that forward, like, hold on to it. Don't let it go.
Yeah. Okay, let's dive into purpose. That's the second element of our happy formula. And I've observed that major life transformation, that really big discovery of purpose, sadly, often comes from devastation. Addiction, abuse, disease, death, disaster, something awful strips a life to its core, resulting in a big and often unexpected change. However, in my book, Turning Inspiration into Action, I share the transformational process that I've used to discover the purpose of my life using inspiration. So how about you, Glenn? Was there a specific moment or event or crisis or inspiration that revealed to you the God-given purpose you were meant to live?
Well, I was almost killed in a plane crash on June 14th, 1987. And, shortly after that, a friend of mine had me over his house and took his Bible out and said, "Hey, I don't know if you realize this, but, God obviously has a purpose in your life because you didn't die in the plane crash." Um, and I wasn't ready. I don't know. I wasn't ready to hear. I don't know. I don't know what more it would take than almost being killed in a plane crash. But God eventually used a gopher to bring me to a saving knowledge of Jesus. Um, and
Like a gopher animal?
yeah, the rodent. Yeah, that story's in the book. I don't think you haven't gotten there
Okay.
yet. I don't
I
think.
haven't
Yeah,
gotten there, no.
yeah. It's my gopher conversion story. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah, and the gopher didn't speak to me, but God used the gopher. Yeah, that would have been
Good.
impressive.
That would.
Um, yeah, and that was really, it was the birth of our second son, Derek, who was born severely disabled. My wife spiraled into depression. I was working huge hours, had no margin, no balance, um, and that, Derek was a problem that even as an engineer I couldn't solve. Um, and that was really what brought me to my knees. Um,
Mm.
and, I mean, I've been able to, my purpose using my skills as an engineer and interest in backpacking, I've been able to help a lot of people get into the healing power of the wilderness and the, grandeur of creation with less load. So that's one of my purposes.
So how did that transformation for you, which sounds like the major thing you're describing is your relationship with God is the primary thing, but how did that the cause of that came from the plane crash and your son's situation and your son's death eventually, right? He died early. Um, how did that affect you? What was the change like? How did you experience a change within you that affected your life and you would call a transition?
Well, I was always very independent or, self-reliant, I guess. I was brought up that way. I mean, I think our American culture is largely kind of geared that way. And I just thought, I'll work harder, work more hours, work longer,
Mm-hmm.
and I can do this. And with the birth of Derek, I just got to the point where I couldn't. I mean, there was a point I never contemplated suicide because that would have been irresponsible, given that I had a family. But there were many nights when I remember lying on my side, looking at the red numbers on my clock as I went to sleep and just hoped that would be the last thing that I would see,
Mm.
that I wouldn't wake up. Um, and it was, crying out and being restored and, having a new purpose and putting things in perspective that it's not about me. Um,
Yeah.
and I needed to kind of reorder my life to start to build some margin for those around me.
So in that moment, I really love to delve into this because so many people maybe who are listening, but people as we're all going through life, we find ourselves in circumstances that are almost unbearable and overwhelming. You're describing that right now pretty well. Maybe I'm not going to kill myself only because it's not a responsible thing to do. That's pretty low. And now people look at you, oh, he's a globetrotter, he's an author, he's got life, fully figured out. But it hasn't always been that way. So how did you move through the drudge and start changing your life from that night when you were looking at the alarm clock and now doing the stuff you're doing? How did that manifest itself, that change?
Well, I mean, one, I started taking, time in the morning. Um, I would get up at 3:30 in the morning so that I had time to read my Bible before being at work at 5 in the morning. Um, So, part of it is just, I think the other perspective is putting, instead of being about me,
Hmm.
it's like, no, what's important today? Who am I supposed to touch today? Who am I supposed to serve today? Um, and then gradually, I mean, in France, you can tell you it's been gradual,
Hmm.
um, kind of cutting back on hours and, um, yeah, just it was a long, slow climb out. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It's been a hard life. I mean, Francie and
Yeah.
I look at each other now. It's like life is good now, and I don't, it could. Francie says like, honey, if everything turns south and we end up living in a car, that's okay. As long as I'm with you. And I believe her. She's not just kidding. I mean, she would do that. So I think when you've been really low, you
Yeah.
appreciate when
Yeah.
life is good,
Yeah.
but you also recognize that could go away,
Yeah.
um, and that's okay.
100%. And so the big change that I'm hearing for you primarily, see if I got this right before we go to break, is taking the focus off of yourself and putting the focus really, truly, honestly on others was the big transition for your life.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's in a nutshell. That was it. It's not about me. That was made
Yeah.
crystal clear.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Thank you for that, Glenn. Now let's take a commercial break so our sponsor can spread a little love with our audience. And we're back, and this is the Something Significant Show, and I'm your host, Matt Gersper. And my special guest star today is Glen Van Peski. He's a trailblazing innovator, engineer, and the founder of Gossamer Gear, a company that's revolutionized ultralight backpacking. Glen's passion for adventure and simplicity has inspired countless people to lighten their loads, both on the trail and in their lives. Through his book, Take Less, Do More, he shares wisdom on generosity, gratitude, and resilience, encouraging us all to embrace life's journey with curiosity and purpose. Glenn, I really love that. And I think you're going to love this article I found called The Science Behind the Power of Giving. And it says that the act of giving itself can be a gateway for discovering your reason for being on the planet. The science tells us that giving our time, talents, and treasures is a powerful pathway for discovering purpose and overcoming difficulties and finding fulfillment and meaning in life. So I updated our formula. Power plus purpose plus giving equals really happy. So how about you, Glenn? Have you found that giving your time, talents, and treasures has been a pathway for discovering your purpose and for getting past difficulties you've faced and for bringing real meaning into your life?
Yeah, I would say definitely, and it's one of the things that resonates with people in the book. I don't know if you've ever read Infectious Generosity by Chris
No,
Anderson.
no.
Phenomenal book, but he quotes a study that generosity, people who are generous experience happiness, which should get your interest, roughly equivalent to a doubling of salary. But
Yeah, wow.
unlike if your salary doubled, that happiness goes away. A year later, it's just what you make. It doesn't make you happy anymore. But the
Yeah,
happiness you get from giving to others continues. When you think about that, it still makes you happy.
yeah,
Um, and you never know what that purpose is going to be. I wash dishes at a bakery, and that's a whole story that's in the book. But COVID hit, and so the owner sent out something to everybody going, hey, let us know. Do you need the hours? What's the minimum you need to pay rent and eat? And so obviously I said, hey, I don't need any hours.
mm,
But I said, if there's, anything I can do to help, let me know. And so sometime later, one of the owners contacted me and said, things are going okay. We're covering most people, but there's like, if you could cover like half the salary for a couple people, that would be great. And because I'd been intentional and we had a separate checking account with all this money set aside, kind of like Joseph sent ahead to Egypt, maybe that's why I
mm-hmm,
needed to take that job so that I can help meet those needs. Um,
mm-hmm.
and, this is not in the book because it's not something that I always share. But seem to fit with the question. So you just never know how the opportunities you're going to have if you've prepared for them.
Yeah, I like one of the things I read you wrote in the book that I like, not being a backpacker, it was buried in that backpacking chapter, but it's along this same notion that you wrote about. You've figured out all the emergency care things you need to bring, though you hardly ever use them for yourself. You bring them because you never know who's going to need them when you're on the trail. And so
Yeah, exactly.
that's a part of margin. That's a part of giving. Giving is a mindset. That is, I think, what we're talking about here and what the science is talking about. When you make it a part of your life, it brings real meaning and joy to you.
And it's even just noticing. I had a meeting down in LA. We're for the food company trying to see if something could go. And the person I was meeting with sat so she could see the door. And she notices someone, like a lady with a large dog, kind of looking in and popping out again. And finally she says, hey, hang on a second. She goes over and say, hey, what's going on? And the guy said, well, I called in my order, but, she has a very, very large dog. And she couldn't read the cups, because of a huge Starbucks. So she didn't want to take the dog. There was nothing you could tie him onto. And so she said, well, I love dogs. How about we watch Tony, the name of the dog, while you go get your drink, but it's just because she noticed and was aware and curious about what was going on. An easy way to serve, but, made that lady's day.
Yeah, that's great. And so the science tells us what you're talking about here is that giving to others helps bring real meaning to our lives. And the joy that we feel from our fourth element of significance, which is giving, doing work that creates value for others, that joy confirms it. But there's something more to it than just the giving, Glenn. I believe that the real magic of life comes when you're giving from living in your purpose, because it creates profound joy, not just for those who are receiving, but also for the giver, because purpose comes from God. So, Glenn, the audience and I would like to know how it makes you feel to be happily living your life and giving to others through the work you were put on the planet to do, and the people all around you have taken notice. So sit back, open your heart, and have a listen to what people are saying about the impact that you're making on their lives by finding the magic of giving from living in your purpose. One person told me, Matt, you've chosen a great guest for your show. Another said, Glen Van Peski makes my heart smile. Another said, Glenn's a big outdoor enthusiast and has a huge heart for people. He took both of those and created outdoor gear that's more lightweight and easier to maneuver so people could enjoy the experience more. And another, he's one of the most phenomenal and creative bakers I've ever known, only rivaled by his generosity in sharing his baked goods. Another said, I enjoyed my first ultralight backpacking experience with Glen immensely. He quietly and generously shared his expansive knowledge in the backcountry and specifically ultralight techniques and tricks of the trade. The trip was a game changer for me. Others said he's an incredible leader, a professional engineer, very solutions and results oriented, collaborative, generous with his time. I've never seen a harder worker dedicated to public service. Glen works towards a purpose and his actions lead to efficient solutions and successful projects. He has the tiniest business card. His goal is to connect people back to nature. He's the first man we ever asked to teach an online class for women who explore. His motto, don't pack your fears, is one that I live by now. Glen's truly one of a kind. And finally, this person said, sometimes you just meet a person and you know that you're in the presence of goodness, and Glen is that. So Glen, how does all that incredible love make you feel?
Well, I'm glad that I'm able to impact people's lives. I could do the same thing with all the people that have impacted my life. So I'm just glad I'm making a difference. And I am mystified that you track down that many people. I imagine sometimes how fun it'll be to get to heaven and find out the people that you impacted that you didn't even know. You made some offhand comment that was a trajectory in their life, but they, your paths never crossed again, so they never got to tell you. So I'm looking forward to those.
Yep, and that's an interesting observation that I feel the same way, and it works two ways: goodness and badness. You mistreat people, you don't know how that affects them also. And so, what this is a testament about is giving goodness, and people recognize it even when they don't tell you directly. And that's what this show is all about. We're here, I hope, we're here to encourage you, our listeners, to find that magic that Glen's living in, that I'm living in your lives. It's available to each of us. That's what I believe. And it comes from this great big happy circle. Giving your time, talents, and treasures is a powerful pathway for discovering your purpose. And then giving from living in your purpose brings profound joy to your life and to the lives of those around you too. And Glenn, I've even heard a study that says when somebody sees an act of kindness, they feel good. So it even reaches out to observers, which is amazing. And so it seems that the giving leads to purpose and giving from purpose leads to joy. So Mr. Engineer, to capture the entire exponential power of our happy formula, I've got to tweak it just a little bit more to this. Power times purpose times giving equals happy to the third power. And that's really, truly, deeply happy. Does that sound about right to you?
That sounds about right. Yeah, I'd probably want to see the full formula derivation, but yeah, just on the face of it, that sounds about right.
Very good. All right, let's wrap things up with the lightning round. I love the power of words and the capacity for great quotes to change lives. So I'm going to read a few of my favorites and ask you to tell us what they mean to you. Not a single word, but just, what first comes to your mind, because we call this a lightning round. So here we go. This is from Lao Tzu. He says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Yeah, don't worry about the future. Just what's the next step and take that step.
Yeah, good. This is one of yours. I just mentioned it. Don't pack your fears.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, show me your pack and I'll show you what went wrong in your last 2 trips. Yeah, I mean, learn from it, but don't overcompensate for it.
So
because you get to write your story going forward. I mean,
yeah,
don't be living in the past.
Okay, and so not packing your fears, that means don't try to anticipate all the stuff that could go wrong and load your pack up with every single instant. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you were cold last time,
Yeah.
then you tend to overpack too many clothes
Gotcha.
this time. And you should, do the research and look at the weather and what's anticipated. And things might go wrong, but don't be influenced. Kind of, I think in history, they say fighting the last battle. If you needed more horsemen last time, you'll have more horsemen. Well, this is a different battle this time. You have to look at the trip ahead of you, not be swayed by what went wrong last time.
So in a life lesson to be, if you had a terrible relationship and you're out of that and you go into a new one, don't bring all that old baggage from your old relationship and punish your new partner.
Exactly. Bring the learnings from that, learnings about yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah, don't prejudge your new partner. Yeah.
Good. I like that. This is from Michael Frant. He said, work hard and be nice.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize I stole that from him. I say work hard, be nice, and stay curious. That's often how I sign my books. And that's actually, we're doing a video for something, and the videographer asked me, what are the secrets to happy, relationship? Because she knew I'd been married a long time, and she was just kind of getting into a relationship or changing. And I said, work hard, be nice, and stay curious. If you got those 3, it's like everything else you can kind of work out.
And for relationships, though, you've added one more. Don't Kaizen your wife.
Yeah. Well, that's, don't be too curious. Yeah.
All right. This one's from Paul Hawken, and it's very similar to one we just talked about. He said, relax, take your time, work, practice, and learn.
Yeah, there are many times when going too fast is dangerous. I mean, you can see probably examples of that going on currently at a national level, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, you need to act because nothing happens until you do something. So you can't put it off forever. But yeah, be deliberate, take appropriate research, and then just do something. Yeah.
Yeah, good. This is from Michelangelo. I love this. I love all these. He said, the sculpture is already complete within the marble block before I start my work. It's already there. I just have to chisel away the unnecessary rock.
Yeah, I love that one. There's a book called Subtract by Lady Klotz that talks about how we have a natural bent to solve problems by adding things. And he's encouraged us to instead look for ways to solve problems by reducing and eliminating things. So I think that kind of fits with that quote. It's like, no, what I'm not adding stuff to create the sculpture. I'm taking away stuff to release the sculpture.
Yeah, it's less is more is real, folks. This is from C.S. Lewis, and he said, humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, yeah, just not, it's not about you. You know, it's not about me. It's how can I serve? How can I find out about other people?
Very good. And this one's from the book of John, chapter 13, verse 34. A new commandment I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another.
Yeah, I mean that's the highest calling, and I think we're so focused in our culture about loving ourselves,
Yeah.
which I think is misguided and is not going to lead to happiness. It's really loving others that will unlock happiness.
Yeah. And folks, and if you're listening, what Glenn said about, the life lesson of taking focus off himself and putting on others, I can just tell you that I experienced the exact same thing in a very profound way when I started Happy Living, and it completely changed my life. It's so much calmer and happier, and it's better because ultimately it's not about us. It's about how we can impact others, and there's so much joy in it. So I hope you're listening, and I hope you're looking for your purpose so you can start living this way, because it's awesome. Glenn, this is our last one from Goth, our show anchor, and Goth said, whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now.
Yeah, it kind of tied with your other one is like, do something. It's take action. And we were just talking about this in my men's group this morning. It's like, we don't see the whole path and where it'll lead, which can be disquieting, but it also can be exciting. I mean, because like I had no idea when I got some fabric and sewed my first backpack that it was going to turn into a multi-million-dollar company. I was just making myself a backpack.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Wonderful. Okay, folks, now it's your chance to be a giver too. If you can hear my voice and you were inspired by today's show with Glen Van Peski, please share a little love with our fabulous broadcast team by giving what you can to WITV7. They're a 501c3 charity on a mission to educate, empower, and encourage. They do good works with your kindness. Glen, I love your adventurous spirit and the way you inspire others to embrace simplicity and generosity in both backpacking and in life. And I admire your dedication to lifting others up, your boundless curiosity, and the impact you're making through innovation and service. And I'm super happy that you've shared your wisdom and kindness and pioneering spirit on our show today. Would you take just a minute or two and share any parting remarks you'd like to leave with our audience?
Well, it's been an honor and a pleasure. I would just say if people want to get a hold of me, of course, they can go to my website, glenvanpeski.com. The book is nothing revolutionary, but everyone hears something when the timing is right and in the words that like speak to them. So my hope is that the stories I've told and the timing in people's lives will coincide, and people will get a few tips to bring more purpose and joy and happiness into their lives.
Yeah, it's a great book, folks. I highly recommend it. Thank you, Glenn. And I also want to thank WITV7 for hosting and promoting our show so we can keep interviewing inspiring guest stars like Glenn and reaching folks just like you ready to create your own extraordinary lives. And most especially, thank you to our viewers and listeners. You'll find links to social media and all things Glen Van Peski. Find him, friend him, buy his book. Check out his tips and advice, watch his videos, download his gear list, read his blog. You can even sign up for his newsletter and bring him in as your next event speaker too. You'll find all of it in our show notes. From me to you, dear friends, I love you and I want you to be really, truly, deeply happy too. So don't wait. Head over to happyliving.com right now and click Unlock Here to start discovering the life you were meant to live, a life filled with purpose, joy, and true significance. And as you're unlocking your truth and your formula and the roadmap to your inspired life, just take a minute and think about what we can do together, you and me, to improve the happy of your world one person at a time. Till next time, I'm Matt Gersper. You are awesome, and this is the Something Significant Show.